There is a moment in the waiting that almost everyone hits. Not at the beginning, when faith is still fresh and hope feels manageable. Not when the prayer is new and the expectation is high. But somewhere in the middle, where the calendar has turned more times than you expected, and the thing you believed God for has not arrived, and the silence has gone on long enough that a quiet, terrifying thought begins to form. Maybe nothing is actually happening. That thought is the lie I want to dismantle today. Because the waiting you are in right now is not empty. God is not on a break. He has not moved on to someone whose faith was stronger or whose life was tidier. And what he is doing in this season, underneath the surface of everything you can see, is some of the most significant work he will ever do in your life. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 says, "The vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay." That phrase, appointed time, is doing more work than most people give it credit for. It is not saying the answer is coming eventually in some vague, unspecified future. It is saying there is a specific, already determined moment when this thing arrives. And between now and that moment, something is being built that the answer itself will require you to have. So let's talk about what God is actually doing while you are waiting and wondering why nothing is moving. The first thing God is doing is removing what would have followed you into your answered prayer and quietly destroyed it. This is the hardest work to recognize from inside the waiting, because it often feels like loss rather than preparation. Relationships that were comfortable but misaligned begin to fade. Habits you thought were harmless start producing conviction you cannot ignore. Thought patterns about yourself and about God that were holding you at a lower level of faith start getting challenged through circumstances you did not choose. You assumed these things were just difficult seasons happening alongside the waiting. They were not alongside it. They were the waiting. God cannot give you a future that your present condition cannot sustain. And rather than let you receive your breakthrough and then watch it fall apart under the weight of what he could see you were still carrying, he deals with what needs to go first. Isaiah chapter 43 verse 18 and 19 says, "Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth, do you not perceive it?" That question, "Do you not perceive it?" is asked to someone who is looking backward at what was lost rather than forward at what is springing up. God is doing something new. But new things cannot grow in soil that is still occupied by everything the old season required. The second thing God is doing is building a version of you capable of receiving what he is preparing. This is the truth that reframes the entire waiting season. You have been praying for the thing to arrive. God has been building the person who can hold it without dropping it. Think about Joseph. God gave him a dream at 17 years old of extraordinary authority and influence. And then God spent 13 years in slavery and prison building the character, the wisdom, the emotional maturity, and the proximity to power that the fulfillment of that dream would require. Joseph at 17 was not ready for Joseph at 30. The dream was always going to happen. The person who could carry it had to be developed first. Genesis chapter 50 verse 20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done." Every difficult thing that happened to Joseph was being worked toward a purpose he could not see from inside it. He could not have written his own story from the prison cell. But God was writing it from outside of time, and every detail was necessary. If the waiting has been stretching you, refining you, confronting parts of you that needed confronting, that is not a detour. That is the main road. The person coming out of this season is the person your answered prayer requires. The third thing God is doing is aligning circumstances you cannot see. This is the part that requires the deepest trust, because it asks you to believe that God is moving in places where you have no visibility. Boaz did not know Ruth existed when Ruth left Moab. Ruth did not know about Boaz when she chose to follow Naomi. Naomi did not know that the field she sent Ruth to glean in belonged to a man of the exact standing and character that the story required. Every piece of that story was moving independently, invisibly, until the day it converged in a field outside Bethlehem in a moment that looked accidental to everyone in it. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 9 says, "In their heart a person plans their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." The establishing is happening. You cannot see it because it is taking place in the lives and circumstances and decisions of people you have not met yet, in timing and sequences that exist outside your field of vision. God is not asking you to see it. He is asking you to trust that He does. The fourth thing God is doing is teaching you how to carry what is coming without it becoming an idol. This is the most counterintuitive work of the waiting, and it is the one most people miss entirely. God is using the period before the answer to determine whether the answer has the potential to replace Him. The thing you are waiting for, whether it is a relationship, a calling, financial stability, recognition, a family, any of it, has the potential to become the thing your heart most fundamentally rests in. And God, who loves you too much to give you something that will quietly move Him from the center of your life, uses the waiting to settle something in you first. Psalm chapter 62 verse 1 says, "My soul finds rest in God alone." Not in the answered prayer. Not in the arrival of the thing. In God alone. The waiting is where that verse moves from something you believe theologically to something you actually live. Because when the waiting is long enough and God is still the thing sustaining you, something has been established in you that the answered prayer itself cannot provide. A rest in God that is no longer dependent on circumstances cooperating. The fifth thing God is doing is holding the door until you are ready to walk through it correctly. This is perhaps the most practical of all five. The door is not late. The door is not lost. The door is being held by someone who can see what you cannot see from your current position. John chapter 10 verse 3 says, "The sheep hear His voice, and He calls His own sheep by name and leads them out." Leads. Present tense. Active. He is leading, which means movement is happening, even when it does not feel like it from your perspective. Being led by someone who sees the whole path requires trusting the pace of the one who is leading, even when it is slower than you would walk on your own. If He opened the door before you were ready, before the character work was done, before the circumstances had aligned, before the wrong things had been removed and the right things had been built, you would walk through it and struggle to sustain what was on the other side. He is not withholding. He is protecting. The timing you are frustrated by is the same timing that is going to make everything on the other side actually last. Here is what I want you to carry out of this today. The waiting is not nothing. It is not silence. It is not God being slow or absent or distracted by someone else's more deserving situation. It is one of the most active, intentional, precisely designed seasons in your entire life. And the person you are becoming in it is the person your answered prayer has been waiting for all along. Write in the comments, "Lord, I trust what you are building in the waiting." And if you know someone who needs to hear that the silence does not mean nothing is happening, send this to her today. God bless you deeply. I will see you in the next one.